We open with Tracy landing on the moon, a moment that is absolutely pioneering and cinematic. Except the camera malfunctions, so she's going to have to be pioneering and cinematic a second time. Ah, well. The problem you want to have, doing a retake on the moon. After the titles, we get the problem you don't want, which is finding out Ed crashed in the Gulf. Karen regrets thinking that she could deal with this when clearly she cannot. And all Kelly can do is try to provide comfort, but Karen is in a fuck you and the hope you wrote in on mood. Kelly answers the phone for her when it rings, and it's all right.
This is what it's like, Kelly. For the people you love, this is what it's like, and you should know that.
Thanks, Mom. That's just what this moment needs. Guilt. Ed makes it home, but there is awkwardness, and Karen heads off to the outpost rather than continuing to join in the awkwardness. Instead, we return to the moon, where Tracy gets a big welcome on camera and gets the Linus patch as the newbie on the moon. For all her travel, she's not been here before.
Hi. Now beginneth the tour of our humble castle.
My liege.
We've come so far, we brought social awkwardness to the moon. But to help, their lead chemist makes moonshine. Well, how appropriate. But they're up here to do science and mining, so he shows around a bit of that before taking her to her bunk. There's not enough beds, so they've normally got a hot bunk, but there's an exception being made for her since she needs to be the face of Jamestown for the folks back home. Make sure that their money is being well spent by the professionals of NASA.
Shut the little bastard. Ain't gonna save you, though. Check this out, cheese dick.
And by Bert and Ernie here.
I take full responsibility for...
Since when? For anything.
Damn, Molly has a black belt and kicking in the nads. She reads them the riot act, tells them they pull this shit again and their ticket gets pulled, and then throws them out. That's actually going easy on them, as both Payne and Margot notes. But as a pilot, Molly knows A, the personalities are something these two don't really understand, and B, things go wrong when you're handling a supersonic jet from time to time. So since she has final say, she's sticking with it, and doesn't need to say anything more, but shows enough restraint not to flip the bird on her way out the door. That is progress. Meanwhile, Alita's here. It's like old times, being in the big room. Yep, just like when she was a kid. So she goes down to talk with Bill to continue this episode's chosen theme of awkwardness. He tries, and she just seems to be sizing up the place for the ignition point. She's on the team for Apollo-Soyuz, see, and... Yep, look at that enthusiasm. That looks like someone who was dancing with joy, doesn't it? Dreams really do come true. Meanwhile, Tracy's introduced to her new role, piloting their LSAM around. Sounds really cool. Fly all over the moon and into orbit in my own personal spaceship. But for them, the shine is worn off. It's just like being a trucker in a bulky suit. Bring people up and down to and from the shuttle, pick up unmanned deliveries that have been dropped onto the lunar surface. I admit, it still sounds like fun. It makes the point, though, this is not as easy as other piloting, and she has a struggle at first. But she quickly gets the hang of it. Tracy may have let celebrity go to her head, but she's still got the skills. Last member of her class, actually, Danielle is aiming for orbit in an old tin can, Molly's stuck listening to a politician and the woman who left her to die in space, and Ellen, well, now Ellen can only dream of going where no man has gone before.
What they used to call a god. How easy for him to flirt, to make you smile.
After the reading, Pam comes over to catch up, but turns out that Pam is not alone.
Ellen, this is Elise, my partner.
Oh, you run the poetry business together, okay. Pam asks if Ellen wants to just get together for a drink sometime, but that's going to have to wait because Carson's on. He's doing an interview with Tracy remotely. The celebrity of being on the moon is great. You know what sucks? Being on the moon. At least with this noisy air vent right next to you. All in all, the novelty is wearing off in a hurry. At the same time as Tracy is doing her montage, Gordo's doing one of his own. She's trying to deal, he's getting his shit together. She's hitting the booze, he's throwing his away. She's getting resentful looks from her crewmates, Gordo.
Boy, won't you feed 'em when you can? Yeah, take a load off, Fanny.
Admittedly, of all the things to be caught doing in a closet, this is probably one of the better ones. As for Tracy, she brought along a pack of smokes in case a French astronaut shows up. She finally takes one into the old Jamestown airlock and lights up. Smoking kills, Tracy. We only want safe things on the moon.
I have here the rules of engagement for use of force on the moon.
I would legitimately want to read that. I'd especially want to read it in public with the title in gigantic letters while muttering to myself, and sometimes saying, beep. The gist is that you only fire in response to a hostile act, or hostile intent, or if they meet the legal definition of needs a killing. As for the Baldwins, Karen seems to be relieved that Ed survived so that she can ignore him now. As for Tracy, werewolf drill, you do a lot of them on the moon. There's a bunch of CO2, and that is a problem because it can lead to confusion and impaired judgment, so it's damn lucky that Tracy's ahead of the curve there. Seems that her attempt to muzzle the noise of the air vent didn't factor in that this is not a cheap apartment. We're in space. We probably need that vent. The commander takes her into his office to point out she's been up here about a month, and that month has been about as smooth as Cuvion and just as fishy. Yep, she is drunk at this very moment. He can tell. And that is really not acceptable when your main job is to fly people. Unless you do it commercially, of course. By all rights, he should write her up for this, but after pleading, he lets her off with a warning and tells her all this special crap, that's over. No interviews, no exclusive bunk. It's time to act like a goddamn astronaut. She heads out to Deke's grave. You'll remember that Deke was the one who said she had a lot of fine qualities, but she wasn't cut out for this. Well, it's got to be kind of ironic she comes here to visit his grave after getting a dressing down because she's not cut out for this. She remarks that she thought the moon would be special, and yet it doesn't feel that way to her. The power of the moon exists all in the mind, really. It's a desert at night without color. But what she told the commander is, this is my life, and now she's out here in the great big empty and has nothing left. She's like the patient at the psychiatrist's office flipping through the Rorschach splotches and asking, what is wrong with you? Why do you have all these pictures of me having sex with my mom? On Earth, Gordo's lying on the bottom of the pool in a diving suit, and this time not hung over. His kids want to know, what the hell is up with this? Danny puts two and two together and guesses this is related to what happened last time. He doesn't know exactly what had happened, but the fact that Gordo wasn't the same afterwards and never went up again, he can read between the lines. Gordo finally admits why, but not in specificity of the actions, but rather of his feelings, that he was weak and afraid. So he's trying to burn that fear out of himself, and he's struggling with that. Danny chooses the approved masculine method of doing that, which is horseplay. Meanwhile, at the outpost, Ellen and Pam are having that drink and catching up, and Karen comes over to drop off drinks and chat quick, during which Pam casually slips in that she's living in Austin with her girlfriend, and it's clear Ellen really needs that drink right now. I think equal parts that this is shining a light in her direction that she doesn't want, but also the reminder that Pam is with someone else now. But love the one you're with, I guess. On the moon, the 4 Marines arrive with their special cargo. It's important to remember, these are NASA astronauts we're talking about here. They just happen to have military training that circumstances have forced them to call upon. If they look super serious at all, it's probably because this wasn't what they were expecting to be doing on the moon. Also remember, they do have infantry training, yes, but these are officers trained to pilot aircraft. The Marine philosophy, everyone is a rifleman, applies to their supply officers, to their lawyers, to their pilots, but they're not specialized in it. Not that I'm saying they're not up for handling this or anything. They've been trained, after all. It's just that they probably have never had to face a genuine enemy with a rifle before. Never mind on the moon. Back in the outpost, after closing time, Danny talks with Karen about being kids with Shane and coming over, seeing her dance alone to Elvis in the middle of the day, and, well, just mentioning that sends her back home to put a little Elvis on and groove to it, which is an interesting way for us to close out the first half of the season, but there we are. You can check out the companion video for discussion of that first half.